Hello, welcome to True Hoop with me, Jarod Hector, and filling in for David Thorpe, who is at the G League Winter Showcase in Orlando, is True Hoop CEO Henry Abbott. How are you, sir?
Not at the Winter Showcase in Orlando. I think. Did you notice? I'm pretty sure that the forecast for Sunday is a high of 24.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not Orlando, my friend.
Nope,
yeah,
definitely not Orlando.
Yeah.
We'll be wearing a heat tech and all the warm necessary accoutrements up here in the Northeast.
Because we're dog owners, me and you. Like,
oh yes,
people I love, they have the option to just not encounter that weather. But me and the dog, we're out there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We will be out with the dogs, and they're going to be like, hey, man, listen, I don't know what to tell you. I got to go. So we got to be out.
You have a younger dog
that
probably needs more exercise than my dog, right?
Yes.
How long do you have to go out there when it's 24 degrees?
So we will probably we'll probably do a 2-mile walk that day. Or she might do, now, as you know, she's a very athletic dog. So we might do speed work in the big field. She might get her anaerobic work in that day. So, that's just what we got to do. Right. And it's just,
so you're at the house for like an hour.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah. It's just it. And we just, but you do it because you love them, right? Like that's the love that we have for her is unconditional. So we do what we got to do.
Oh, my dog love is conditional for sure. But it's still big. But I actually find, I'm like, it's just good for us, right? Like the fact is, I don't want to be stuck in the house all the time.
Right.
It doesn't make me feel good, but sometimes you need the obligation of the dog to be a little like, all right, let's saddle up, mofos. We're doing this.
Exactly.
And she gets even though my dog is old and we can go literally like 2 blocks out across the block, 2 blocks back, and she's like, woo! She's not doing speed, whatever the opposite of speed work is what we're doing. She's literally reached an age now where like we'll just be like in the middle of the block and she's like, whew.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Just kind of look into the middle distance for a while.
Yep.
I'm like, can we go? Like I've gotten really nervous about like I have no idea how long our walks are gonna take. If I have to be back for like some Zoom or whatever.
Oh, I know.
I'm like, I have to leave forever before the Zoom because we might just be gazing into the middle distance.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to be that guy who's like dragging an old dog through the streets.
That's one of the challenges though, right? Is that if you work from home and you have a dog and like you got to call at like 2 or whatever, it's like this, you're playing with this schedule thing, right? I mean, it's a bit of a challenge. So I know I'm with you on that, but we do our best to work around, start early, go later, whatever, go back out again after, we just.
It's fun on the weekends. I'm like, I don't care. We'll just go.
We just
like, you're going to find some fascinating, like, there used to be a piece of corn under this bush, and we're going to just really get excited about that. Like, all right.
Well, my fear with that is that, what was it, like a week or 2 ago, she for sure ate weed off the street. And look, like marijuana's legal, and I'm all for that, and this whatever.
Keep it on your person, people. Yeah,
right. And it's toxic for dogs. And like, I was just like, oh Lord. And so now, every time I do like a toss to treat, because we do a lot of training stuff with her, I'm like, where am I tossing it? Not in a pile of leaves where there might be edibles in there. Like it's a whole thing.
Wait. I'm just to give a little more context. Like, what did she actually eat? Like, what does it look like? What was the?
That's the thing. I don't even know. But when we went to because our other dog Hazel had a similar thing happen to her, we're pretty sure this is what it is, and our vet's like, yeah, this is kind of what it's looking like, just based on what her reaction's like, and like it looks like what it's like.
Was she listening to the dead, or like what was she doing?
There's nothing you could. I mean, so normally she sleeps, her tongue sticks out a little bit, right? A little tip. It's like very cute.
Yeah.
Her full tongue was all the way out, and like I was just like, this is kind of strange. Like, and she's a very big tongue.
Come on.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't look right. And then the next day, she kind of was like standing in the corner, and she's like, I'm like, are you high right now? Like, what is going on? So yeah, but. Thankfully, all good. All you can do really in that situation is like they kind of just got to let it like kind of run its course. There's really not a whole lot they do.
And it took a while, sounds like.
It took I want to say a couple days, and then
was she hungry?
Did she have the munchies?
Just like,
well, that's how we knew something was up, because she wasn't eating. I was like, all right, something's up. Like
something's up. Yeah, for sure.
No, Henry, you have children, so like, and much like when they were super young and they couldn't talk to you and they were sick, you're like, you have no idea, because they can't tell you.
It's one of the worst feelings.
It's the same with them. I'm like, you can't tell me what is wrong, so I'm like going through, okay, is it this? Is it this? I'm like checking your ribs. Are you hurt this way? Like it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Okay, well, good update. I didn't know about this. Yeah.
Yeah, listen,
New York
things
City,
happen.
man. I think we could go. I live in a little town in New Jersey. I think we could go multiple dog lifetimes and not have a dog
Yeah,
accidentally.
no,
Like the
you'll
weed
be
in
fine.
this town is not being littered about.
Yes,
It's
correct.
just too precious.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
New
Whereas
York
here,
is.
it is all over the street. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just like
yeah.
you go outside and turn the corner, and it's like, wow, somebody's really, it's just what it is.
I'm taking us way off topic. We're like 25 minutes into the show.
Oh,
Haven't talked basketball.
that's fine.
But I'll just tell you that I moved to New York City from Oregon in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had in my head that like Oregon would be the stonier of the two places. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
But I was alarmed when and it's much more marijuana rich now than it was then.
Yep.
I was in Greenwich Village though, but still, it was like, like,
Still.
oh, this is I thought of New York as like people in suits going to important jobs. And I was like, those people are high as fuck.
They 1000% are. Yes.
I was like,
the marijuana does not discriminate here. It is the construction workers on break. It is also dude in the 3-piece suit. Like there is no.
It's like a marijuana city. It's like an underground fact about the city. Everyone in the city knows. Everyone else in the city doesn't know. Is like the city just copes with the stresses of the city by and large.
Yeah,
with that
pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's a very accurate description. All right, for all of you who don't have dogs and don't have any feelings about marijuana one way or the other, let's talk NBA basketball. So Henry, we had the NBA Cup championship on Tuesday night. The Milwaukee Bucks defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder. Giannis Antetokounmpo was the tournament MVP. First, your thoughts on the game?
I think it was a success. It was fun. People were into it. I mean, there were some articles, and David was like blowing up our WhatsApp with like how the Vegas crowd sucked.
Yeah.
And we could talk more about crowds. I'm into that topic, but mostly I was like, we saw how hard those players were playing. It seemed to really matter more than these December
they suck.
It was a Tuesday night in December, right? Like
that's a shitty game. Almost
they made it more meaningful with this structure, and they've only gone like I don't know 40% of the way to where you could go to make it exciting. Right?
I agree.
So I think it's a win. They just need revenue. I think the league just needs models that increase the revenue, and maybe having some more important games that drive more revenue and more ratings is the door to cutting some of the more meaningless games. So it could be that that's what's happening behind the scenes. I've not heard that, but so that'd be cool. I think.
Henry, I'm with you 100%. I think, look, people listen to Hoop know this. We are long advocates of cutting the regular season and shortening it. I'd be down with that. And just like cut away that fat of meaningless games, expand this tournament out a little bit, similar to how, European football, soccer here in America works, right? Where it's like, Champions League this week, right? Like, and it's a big deal, right? Because it's a team we don't normally play because they're not in our league or whatever. Add those different components to it, and I promise you will see things that matter and more revenue, right? And then you can sell that package strictly to one streamer, right? It's like, hey, you can buy NBA packages as part of our deal, though this is now 7 years past when the current deal expires, or 11 years, however long it is. The NBA Cup or whatever they call it by that time, this is special. You have to pay different money for this. This is not part of our normal game package. And I mean, this is not rocket science. Like smart people work in and around this league. They can figure this stuff out. Like it's not really that difficult.
So in its current iteration, it's definitely a method to remove money from the United Arab Emirates. It's like the Emirates Cup. It's got Emirates on the referee things. And then every second commercial was that pretty terrible commercial with that woman talking about how great Emirates economy class is.
And like maybe when Penelope Cruz?
Was that Penelope Cruz?
That is Penelope Cruz. So you might want to rewind that.
I would like to rewind that.
Yeah, Penelope Cruz, one of the objectively more attractive humans ever to grace the face of the earth.
Let's not go into a whole Penelope Cruz breakdown, but like, I mean, that commercial was not great. That's funny. I did not realize it was Penelope Cruz. But I don't know. It just seemed like, that's where the money's coming from.
Well, yes.
Anyway, so that's.
And would it surprise you that if one day the NBA Emirates Cup is in Doha or in right, like that's where the championship's going to be? Like that would not surprise you.
Yeah, and then maybe that crowd will cheer. There was a weird, I mean, this is such a small time concern, but like they're interviewing like Dame on the court after the game, and you can see the people who've taken the court. These are people who had the expensive seats or some kind of press pass, and they're milling around. I most of the time when those scenes occur in the background, I know those people.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, that's whatever. That lady works for ESPN or whatever. Like, I don't know all of them. I know a good percentage of them. Right. It was this Vegas crowd. I'm like, nah, I don't know who these people are. Yeah. And they didn't look that excited to be there. There's like literally like, oh, Dad had these tickets and he really wanted to go. Like, I was like, this is a weird. Like, they're standing right behind sweaty Gaylord on the court. Giannis is hugging people, but he has to navigate around someone who's like, Jesus, I didn't want to come to this.
It's tough, right? Because you don't know in advance who is going to be at the semifinals or finals, right? When you buy your tickets, it's just it just is whoever wins. But hopefully, as the cup gains more importance, and things only have matter and are important when we say they do, right? That's ultimately, we decided that the NBA finals matter, so they matter, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, we decided that, look, this NBA cup, and for the players, it matters, right? They care about it. It's obvious. Look, the Warriors cared about it. They were pissed they didn't win that quarterfinal matchup. Like,
that was great for it.
Exactly. So once we see more of that, I think regular fans who like to complain about every fucking thing, and I'm like, guys, who cares? Like, literally during that Warriors-Rockets game, Henry, how many people I saw tweeting about the court? I was like, guys, this is a one-possession game with teams like literally punching each other out, and you're like, oh, this court looks weird. I'm like, do you even like basketball? People who do things like that? Like,
there used to be this guy who had this like internet theory that like the sort of underlying ethos of internet commentary is why wasn't I consulted? Like WWIC. I feel like that's still kind of true.
Yeah.
They didn't ask this guy
about the court, so now he's very annoyed about it.
They're just like, oh, this wasn't the court I wanted. They're not going to consult you. They're not going to consult you.
So the game itself, Henry, competitive in the first half, one possession game. Oklahoma City could not hit the broadside of a barn door. Second half was much more the same. Still couldn't do it. I will give the Bucks some credit for that defensively, but the Thunder also just missed a lot of shots that were makeable. So it ended up being kind of a blowout in the second half. But the Bucks have been playing better basketball of late. And we here at True Hoop, David and I, on our preseason previews, I think you wrote about them as well. We were not high on the Bucks. Now, in the last 2 weeks, I have said, look, I have to give credit where credit is due. They are playing better. I am still not ready to say they are title contenders, but they're playing better basketball. What say you?
Yeah, David, this morning we published David's like championship bus thing, and he put them, he created a new category this year. So the idea of the championship bus is that the NBA season begins with very few real contenders, unlike most sports. And so we're like, who's on the bus? And as the season goes on, the number of contenders generally just goes down. So we try to check in on who's on the bus. This year, David, I think, justifiably created a trailer on the bus. When the trailer has Minnesota, Milwaukee, Denver, Phoenix, and the Knicks. And so that's not great, but I think he's allowing that they might, is Chris Middleton going to be good? We don't really know these things yet. So I feel like, my take is actually that if we had little monitors on Giannis, like soccer players wear those catapult monitors.
Yep.
They're not allowed in NBA play, but if he were wearing one, I think we would see that when the Bucks have been good, his level of exertion is absolutely crackers, like bananas, and we love him for this, right? He's so fun to watch. He's so ferocious. He's so all in, and when there's a dead ball, like I'm a little bit scared at how hard it is for him to catch his breath. Like, this is a man who's going like crazy, and he's 30 now, right? And so I think that is the baseline for them being a good team, right? Is Giannis is just playing like a 24-year-old, right? And I have not done this research, but I bet that if you went and looked at like how often can a 30-year-old exert at the level he exerts, I bet the max per season is like 30 times maybe. I'm just guessing. This is totally guessing, but like, so okay, we've used like 15 of them. And we got 15 left, and a little bit of the reason I don't think they're contenders is because he's doing it now.
Yes, correct.
And like, he's gonna want these in April, and,
correct.
He's gonna be tired, and I'm sorry to say this, but I just like, you don't see 30-year-olds playing like this hard all season long.
No, that's just a factual statement, and that's why in many ways why the NBA Cup matters, right? Because in a single elimination tournament, he can do that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see teams start, particularly these older veteran-laden teams, because who won it last year? An older veteran-laden team in the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah.
That they say, you know what? This is our championship because we cannot do this for 4 rounds in April. Like, we will not have the juice to do it then. We're going to win our trophy in December. And honestly, look, I know people are like, oh, who cares? Why should we care about it? One of the things I enjoy about world football is if you root for a club team, you have multiple chances to win trophies. It's not just one championship and then it's over. You win your league domestic tournament, Champions League, Super Cups. There's all these various different trophies you can win, and I love that. So,
yeah,
look, I think it's great, and you're a big fan of more opportunities for trophies. Not everyone gets a trophy, very different thing, but more opportunities for trophies.
The only problem with it is that it's new. Like once it's been here for 15 years, I don't say shit. Like it's just a. And actually, the other thought I had watching it was, okay, so Giannis led team won.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wonder, like we are very much in an NBA media environment where all of the hullabaloo and focus is on this older set of players, right? We've been a Steph and LeBron league for a long time. James Harden, Anthony Davis,
KD,
Kawhi Leonard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I wonder if this is that crew. So I'm making a weird category here, but we take players who are 30 or older today, right? So I just looked it up a little bit. It's like Steph, Kyrie, Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, Paul George, LeBron James, Chris Paul, Draymond Green, DeMar DeRozan. Those are the top 30 and over players on dunks and threes right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe this NBA Cup was the last thing they're going to win.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think maybe that crew, my best guess is they won't win any more championships or cups. Because like the players who are actually the best in this by the same metric are like Jokic is 29, so he's a big.
He's getting close. He's getting close.
Shay's 26, Luka's 25, Embiid's 30. I didn't include him. That's stupid. Tatum's 26. Franz Wagner's up there, and he's 23. Donovan Mitchell is 28, and his team is very good. Anyway, so I think if you had to pick like under 30 or over 30, you would pick under 30 every time, sure. Right? Yeah. And it's maybe more than ever now, which is only news because we don't think of those younger players as the best players in the world, but they are.
Yeah, no, look, we know this, right? This is not an old man's league. It's a young man's league. And none of those 30 and over guys are going to win unless they are paired with one of those 26 and younger also top players, right? Like that, it's just, and because of salary caps and all the reasons we know, that's generally not the case for almost all of them, right? Because
that's right. My point is really about who's going to be like the unabashed leader of your team, right?
Right.
I feel like the Bucks are like, they're just too old.
Yeah, and listen, things happen, right? So one of the things that was a result of that game, and it's been a conversation that's been happening to start the season, was the amount and the prevalence of threes that are being taken. And the Oklahoma City just couldn't make one in that game. So the question was, should they have stopped shooting threes, as many people were suggesting online during watching this game? They're like, see, this is why people hate the NBA. You guys suck and you're not making any threes, but you keep shooting them. Do something different. What say you?
You know, like, teams shoot about the same percentage from the mid-range as 3-point line, right? They're tough places to shoot, both of them, right? They're both like sub 50%. What do those people say when you just brick from the mid-range all night?
Exactly.
Right? Like, I feel like they're just saying like I'm familiar with one kind of shot here, and I'm not familiar with the other one, and so ew.
Right.
It's like, get over yourself. Like, it's not about you and your feelings, right? Like, the advantage of the three, to recap something we've been talking about for fucking ever, is that it leads to dunks.
Correct.
Right? Like, if all who are they dreaming about here? They want like Carmelo in the mid post, right?
Yeah.
Like, the whole paint is jammed and nothing's fun to watch, right? Like, okay, it's fun to have the little moment where he makes it. That's cool. But like, it's so much more. Every highlight that we have is because those 3-point shooters have sucked the defense out of the paint, which lets the acrobatics occur, right? Like, Mike D'Antoni's big thing is like, we just want to make more layups. Yeah. That's why they invented that offense, was for more layups, right? So I salute you, hard-edged, like, people for cherry picking these games now and again when a really good team misses threes.
Exactly.
good job being so on it. But like, why are you guys all fucking silent when the game is beautiful, which is 9 out of 10 NBA games now?
Correct.
Like, we're living in peak NBA, and it's absolutely fantastic to watch. And all you need is just for the Thunder to play one more game, and you'll see how fun it is, right?
Exactly.
Like, and as far as like strategically, this is like a real deal, just like science problem. It's like, what's the best predictor of whether Shea's next three is going to go in? Is it like the small sample of the few shots he's taking tonight, or the season, or his career, or like how far back do we go to make it more predictive? And like the answer is like, unless there's something we know, like today he has a strained tendon in his wrist or something. Unless there's some reason that we wouldn't use the bigger sample size, like the bigger sample size is always a better predictor.
Yep.
And there's one other little wrinkle of this, which is like the other thing that could screw up Shea's shooting is if Shea thinks that his coach and his teammates are mad that he's missing, right? That's one more way to screw him up, right? Is if he gets down about it. So like the right answer is like, I'm benching your ass if you don't take every open three and some other threes too, right? Like you have to tell Shea that you think he's the greatest shooter of all time and he's going to save not just his team, but humanity by making his next one, right? Like he needs to be rock solid confident in that. And like, he just can't get all, well, we're going to shift our strategy in the second half because we went 2 for 7 in the third quarter. Like, no, like that Popovich thing. He's like, make a shot, get your name in the paper, let her rip, man. Like, it's beautiful when you shoot. Like, do your thing. There's good shooters on that team. Like, it just didn't happen. It doesn't happen all the time.
You're 100% right. And that's the thing about one game sample sizes, right? And this cup being single eliminations, that anything can be a wild variant outside of what normally happens. The Thunder shot 15% from three in that game. Now,
it's terrible.
They are not a great three-point shooting team for the season. They are 35%. However, had they shot their season average because of the way they play defense, they likely win that game. Okay? Yeah. That's just how it works. And they didn't in that game. Yes, some of it, I'm going to give credit, some of it to Milwaukee. Some of it was also, they just missed shots that they could make. It happens in a one-off.
There was a little, I felt a little, so like Kenrich Williams is one of their good shooters, right? To just have him in late, just like covered jacking threes, I was like, it seems like they don't really have the like solution for when they're having a hard time scoring totally down. Like that would worry me a little, but mostly I think it is, if I were the Thunder, I wouldn't feel bad at all.
No,
like in the 7-game series, they're gonna win. They're better, and they just didn't.
Yeah,
okay. It's like this is exactly how the U.S. lost to Greece in whatever year that was.
2004,
8. I don't know. I think it was after True Hoop existed as of 2005, and it was while Troop existed, so after 5.
Okay.
But I remember everyone was like, the sky's falling, and David was like, these Greek dudes were like falling out of bounds, draining threes, and then cracking up, right? Like, that's a game you can't win.
Right. Shit just happens sometimes, man. Yeah. Like, no, you're 100% right. I will say, though, for OKC, not having Chet matters, right? Because Chet's a good three-point shooter. He's a big, all that. I do think, and David wrote this in his piece today, shooting is something they will have to address because this was their Achilles heel against the Dallas Mavericks in that playoff series last year. And over the course of 7 games, yes, like they're going to have variance in their shooting because their volume, right? They're among the top end of the league in volume in terms of 3-point pointers taken, but they're not in the top end in terms of make percentage. They're in the bottom end in terms of make. So there's a gap between their volume and how much percentage-wise they make. So they will have to figure out, address to get better. Look, you can never have too much shooting. So I think that is something that they should definitely take a look at and figure out, okay, how do we get another shooter in here so we're feeling a little bit more confident about ourselves? And then also to Henry's point, what's our strategy when that dribble drive and the kickout's not working and we're not hitting shots? What's plan B?
Yeah, it's tricky. David also muses about, the Thunder are like always the best position to make trades, right?
They are
infinite resources to trade. And with, and I don't know how Chet's recovery is going or how confident they are and exactly when he'll be back. If he's going to be back, then they probably don't need to do anything, right? Mm-hmm. But if he's going to be back, with 6 weeks before the playoffs or whatever, then great. Like that's fantastic. But now they're in this weird thing where like Isaiah Hartenstein is not a 3-point shooter at all. But he's like their only big, so they kind of have to play him. Mm-hmm. So then who do you trade for? Like they really, to get shooting, they need to get shooting and big.
A big shooter would help, right?
Not a lot of those.
No.
Not a lot of those, right?
No.
Yeah. So I don't, yeah. And ultimately, you don't have a lot of minutes for that player, right? Most likely.
Yeah.
Who would it even be? I can't even think of. I was going to throw out a name, but like
a big shooter. God, that's not going to get a lot of minutes. Like
Duop Reith is who they want. I mean, honestly, he makes like $2 million. He would be a perfect stopgap.
Duop Reith, I love it,
dude. He's good. He's good.
Leave it to Henry to bring up a Portland Trailblazer player in this conversation.
I mean, only because my brain is so old, I can't think of other players. But he, he's not playing. He was the second best Blazer in dunks and threes last year.
Yeah, no, listen.
And he shoots whatever from three, and he's big.
Well, listen, Portland, we know they're not trying to win right now. So, I imagine he'll be available, possibly. How old is he?
27.
Okay, so he is past the age of when they'll be ready to win. They'll be ready to contribute. So,
yeah.
Prime candidate to move.
Yeah.
I like it. Take a look.
Okay.
As David said to us, though.
Let's play a game. Everybody gets a Blazer. We'll just go through the roster. Everybody gets a Blazer.
I love it. You get a Blazer. You get a Blazer. No, listen, it's coming soon, folks. That's December, whatever the date is, or February also the ultimate trade deadline. But guys are going to start being available to move December 15th, who were just signed in the offseason. So we'll see some stuff happening coming up here.
I'm pretty sure it's the 19th, Jarod.
I'm sorry?
Today's the 19th.
Oh, so then it's already happened. So it's already here. Look, see, I don't even know what day it is. It's already here. So people are ready. I think teams are just waiting to kind of see, all right, where we are. And this is something you mentioned, or David mentioned in the article. Standings don't change much after January 20th. So kind of who you are now, Christmas, this is really it. So you have enough of a sample size to know what we are good at and what we're not good at. Now, the fallacy many teams have right now, Henry, is if they have a hurt player or whatever, it's like, well, when X gets back, we will be this. And maybe you will, but that's also a dangerous place to be in, right? Because maybe you won't be.
So, Jarod, let me tell you about that January 20th date. That's a story that I edited. And if I recall correctly, what happened was it was initially proposed by Tom Haberstroh as a story about how the first 26 games are enough to make very accurate guesses about how the season's going to finish. We wanted to put some fancy art with that story. And so we couldn't get it out by the 26th game. So we just kind of like January 20th was when we were able to get the story out. So that was like a very solid time. But the standings are solid already.
Okay.
Right? Like it was like, it's just an oddity of
where you already know what your team is.
Pretty solid. So that means, which means like the biggest salary teams, right?
Mm-hmm. The Suns, the Bucks,
the Warriors, the Knicks are pretty high, right? It means a lot of the teams who really had high expectations for this year, the Wolves, the Bucks, the Nuggets, etc. They know they are not in that top tier.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't usually, if you look at history, usually they don't trade in December.
No.
Right? They usually, I think they're waiting to see what everybody else is doing.
Right.
See like how much you really have to pay for a backup center, right? You want to know these kind of things.
Yeah.
But it usually happens late January.
Yeah.
I think when it starts happening. But yeah, I don't think we need to learn a lot more about which teams are good.
No. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. You mentioned, as we wrap up this NBA Cup discussion, David has been complaining about the Vegas atmosphere. I agree. Do you think the solution is just more as it goes on and it's not new anymore, it'll start becoming more important and people will buy tickets in advance knowing I don't care who's there because I love basketball, so it can stay in Vegas? Or do you think, Vegas is a problem, we got to move it somewhere else?
I think NBA crowds are a problem, right? Like I feel like I'm watching so many games, even in like the Clippers' new stadium or good teams, and they're empty seats in the lower bowl, right? Like what team did I watch where like they're like the GM, there's like the GM and like some luminary, and like the immediate seats behind them were a whole empty row.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this is chickens coming home to roost, where they jack ticket prices forever.
Yep.
Up and up and up and up and up. It's kind of like going to an NFL game, but you have to buy season tickets to get those good seats, and they want you to buy 41 of them.
Insane.
And maybe there's a ticket license too. And so, like, literally, like, it's not a new thing at all. Like, I wrote a story for us when the Warriors moved from Oakland to San Francisco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that Oakland arena had very few hardcore basketball fans in it. These are just rich people. That's who's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but it wasn't rich enough, right? Then they moved to like a much more exclusive arena.
All the rich people.
And so, like, we just don't have fans in the arena. And to me, like, that when I fell for it when the Clippers were like, oh, we're gonna have the wall, or we're gonna basically import actual people who cheer. And at first, I was like, oh, that seems like a good idea. I think I even proposed something like that a long time ago. But now I'm like, oh my god! Now that I actually see it, I'm like, oh my god, this is rich people importing poor people to make the rich people more amused, to make it more fun. Because what rich people aren't amused by is other rich people not being amused.
Right? Yeah, correct.
And I'm like, it's just this, it's a richathon in there. Like the whole arena, even when I first started covering the league, I go to a lot of Sixers games. I was like, in the lower bowl, you could look and it was like, it was very hard to find anybody who was really into it.
Yeah.
This was even when the Sixers, this was like the heyday of Allen Iverson. And like, and it was people entertaining clients, or there's not a lot of like, I'm bringing my kid to their first NBA game. It's just very little of that. So to me, like, this is what the NFL has going for it. This is what European soccer has going for it. Is like the stands are alive.
It's a shit house. Like, it's just fucking crazy in there.
It's fucking crazy. It looks really fun.
Yes.
And in both cases, you just don't have to buy so many tickets.
Nope.
Right? Like I think it's a problem that like the most all-in fans are the ones who are there game in and game out. And NBA has too many games for like, who can fucking go? Like, who can go
3 games in 7 weeks
times a year?
Anybody with a normal life, forget about just you have a job and things to do. 3 games and 7 nights in a week? Fuck no.
Fuck no.
Like, it's just, what are you talking about? No. Like,
so you end up with like the brand. Like, what does it mean? Like, when someone hits the text thread with like, hey, you guys, I have tickets to this game. Can you go? Like, if I'm telling you, if it's NFL tickets, they're gone in 10 seconds.
Yep. If it's NBA, it's like
NBA tickets, and I was like, I'm kind of busy, you know?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No, look, it's long been a problem. You and I, we've talked about it on this show ad nauseum. Like, they gotta figure. And look, the $77 billion deal suggests to everybody we gotta do nothing right because the money keeps flowing. I'm like, okay, I guess, but ultimately,
you're not in the like zeitgeist. You're out of the zeitgeist. You know, like it's you can only get so far from what people really care about, right?
I agree 100%. Speaking of, and this is kind of related, Celtics head coach Joe Mazzulla was asked about a topic that is often dominates the early part of the NBA season, which is declining ratings. And the reporter, and God bless her question was a bit long-winded, but Joe was like, "Oh yeah, I'm part of that problem. I don't watch NBA games either." And I thought to myself, is it good for an NBA head coach to say in a public press scrum that, yeah, I'm part of the problem. I don't watch NBA games either? We had enough issues with Kenny and Shaq and Chuck, like, bashing the league's ambassadors and their media partners, telling you every day on TNT, the product sucks. I don't think it's great that a head coach is saying that. What say you?
I think the recently retired players have this like certain like inability to acknowledge that today's players are better than they were.
Of course.
Right? And so that gets me down a little. I felt with the Joe Mazzulla thing, I was like map it out. Like get your Google Calendar and tell me how Joe Mazzulla is supposed to spend his time. like you know how many flights he's on? How many like how many he's supposed to watch his team, right? Like,
and then film with the other team maybe a little
bit.
When
is he supposed to be watching TNT? Like and actually there was a day when I was at the All-Star Tech Summit and I was at the little buffet and I asked a little collection of GMs and stuff. I'm like what would you guys most value from ESPN? And they were like a cheat sheet of like a little video summary of last night because everyone thinks we saw every game, and how the fuck are we going to see every game? It's like, but if I go to Starbucks, people are like, "Oh my god, can you believe the Thunder last night?" And he's like,
"I don't know.
I didn't see the Thunder last night, right?" Like, think about it. How could it possibly happen? Right?
I'm watching my own team.
Yeah, he's like, I want like a little 10-minute like just like watch this before you go to Starbucks so you don't look stupid, you know? And that's probably the same thing Joe Mazzulla wants, right?
Yeah,
like he's just you can't watch these games. How the fuck is he supposed to watch these games? Like David Thorpe does it because he has nothing else going on that night. Joe Mazzulla's coaching the Celtics.
David's got 7 screens going because he's got players all over the place. Joe's like, I'm playing the Hawks right now. Well, I cannot watch other basketball.
I have an eyeful, you know? Yeah. They frown on having your little iPad on the side.
So the solution is we need less games. Right?
That's where I'm headed. Yeah.
I think we need less games. That's the answer. All right, folks, we'll be back.
Tell us where to focus, I think. Yeah. Tell us what to look at. It can't be everything.
No, I love that idea though of a 10-minute recap. Like, all right, here's what you watch. Like,
sorry, I know you were about to go to break. The other thing that's on my mind is we need a new word in English for like I've been over marketed to. Like, I do think this is like we go to things, we pay money for tickets to things, but man, when I go to an NBA arena, like I literally wouldn't bring my family to that because there's something about it that doesn't seem fun enough. And I've put my finger on it. It's just a number of goddamn ads and promotions and marketing. Like if they shoot a T-shirt of us in the stadium, 1,000%, it's got not the team logo on it. It's got I got a freaking State Farm T-shirt. Fuck you. Like pay for the goddamn T-shirt, right? Like if you're charging premium prices for stuff, like everything shouldn't be Allstate and you know what I mean? Like something should be where the benefit accrues to us.
Yeah.
Everything in the arena is Arabella Insurance, or like everything is where the benefit accrues to the billionaire, right?
Yeah.
And like I recognize there's a balance there, and I think some teams lose significant money, right? But I feel also on the broadcast, same thing. It is spammed up. Like,
oh my god!
Like if it were a website, it's a website with pop up after pop. Like it's just like it's so unpleasant. And to me, I'm like this is part of the ratings conversation and part of the ticket buying conversation. Is like you guys made choices to do stuff that benefits you at the expense of fans every millisecond, and like it's just tiring. I feel lucky. I usually watch a DVR. Like I usually watch. I'll start an hour after it starts, and I'll just,
which is the
if
best.
I have to watch the whole thing, which I did for the cup game.
Yeah,
I was
like, what the? You're like, if I see Penelope Cruz on my screen one more time.
That's exactly what I was like.
No, you're 100% right there. I'm with you. It's gross for lack of a better term, but also sports is a microcosm of the society in which it inhabits. Take a look around, folks. This is what late stage capitalism looks like.
On that note, let's go to an ad.
I mean, listen, right? We cannot break this machine, unfortunately. So we have to be cogs in it. We'll be back after this brief commercial break. Woo, boy. All right. Now, on to more serious topics. U.S. women's national team superstar Trinity Rodman was a guest on the Call Her Daddy podcast recently, where she opened up about her relationship with her estranged NBA father, Hall of Famer Dennis Rodman. And it was the first time, Henry, that she was candid and very open about Dennis's lack of being present in their life, and the trauma it has inflicted on her even now to this day. I watched the entire interview, and I say watch, like I said, it was a podcast, but I think in this context, it was important to watch to see not only her response, but her visible body language while she was answering the questions. And you could tell this was a difficult situation for her, as it would be for anyone opening up about this kind of thing. And you wanted to talk about it today and bring some thoughts about it. I was hesitant about it just because I'm like, well, what are we going to say that we don't already know? Like, he's a shithead. Like, excuse my language. Like, for me, I thought everyone knows this. Like, who doesn't know that this dude's a shithead? Like, and so, but you have thoughts about Trinity and why it's important that we talk about this.
Yeah, I think my concerns are mostly about us, sports media, right? And so there's Trinity, first of all, like, hats off to her. If you don't know, she's like literally one of the finest players on planet Earth.
Oh, incredible.
Incredible. And she's kind of like, she's earned now, like in this sport, that is not a very lucrative sport, she's earned the position to make this critique, right? Like the vast majority of people in her position have to kind of worry about maybe they're going to need their dad to pay their bills, right? I don't know how much Trinity makes. I know that her NWSL contract is not that lucrative, but she has other deals and like national team and like because she's like she got all of that one. Like she let loose. Like she didn't hold back. She literally said at one point that like she takes his calls, even though it's hard to know which are his calls because his phone changes all the time.
Correct.
But like she doesn't block them all because she's worried she's going to get the call that's the last.
This
call.
Is it. Mm-hmm.
Like she's given up on him a long time ago, and she's worried he's going to die soon, right? Like this is what she's saying. So that's kind of wow. You know, that's we don't hear these stories. We don't hear this version of the story very often.
Nope.
So kind of in a way, as someone who just loves like the truth, I'm like, this takes a lot of courage to talk like this. Kind of badass. And I really felt like you're right. You were smart to watch it. I wish I had, because like there were so many moments where I felt like it would be easy for her to kind of wriggle out or duck, and she never did. Like,
and you could see it when I watched it. She was physically wiggling in the moment, because it is, as she said, this is it. No matter how she she understands who her father is as a person, right? Like, not a good father. He is a dad in biology only, but that biology is in her. It is literally in her DNA. So there is a love she has for him that she cannot explain, because he's her fucking father, despite the fact that he is a piece of shit human being. Like, right? So it's this like very difficult push-pull.
And I didn't feel that she was just, I didn't feel like she was like, okay, let me assassinate my dad's character today.
Not at all.
I was just trying to tell the story, because the version that's been out there is a little off, right? And there was a part that really got me, honestly. The part where I was like, oh man, I'm rooting for her so hard now. Was there was a part that I think will probably be what everyone remembers, is where she and her brother and her mom were living in
a car,
Ford
Expedition,
and they live in like a very
Newport Beach, very wealthy community.
Very wealthy. So people are rolling up in their Rolls Royces, and they're rolling up in the car they slept in last night. Right? But and the host of the podcast wanted to sort of, I felt like, get her to kind of like indulge in how terrible that was. And she was like, I gotta be honest, a lot of those nights we stayed in a motel. She's like, and credit to my mom, but also like they had the waffle maker and a pool. It's like my brother and I got to literally like make waffles and then go for a swim before school every day. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it was really kind of great. Like, and I was like,
finding the joy, right?
I fucking love that.
Well, it's funny, because in that moment I was thinking of David and get off the roller coaster and enjoy the merry-go-round, right? Like, that life is a roller coaster, right? We at one point lived with our dad in Newport Beach in his super huge mansion, but then he kept having wild sex parties and all these people over, and my mom was like, you have children, they cannot be in this environment. Right. And now we live in our car. Well, roller coaster, but enjoy the merry-go-round. That was Trinity finding joy in the merry-go-round, right? Like, waffle maker, pool, hot tub, right? Before I go to school. Like, wild stuff.
That was, I kind of love, there's some Triumph of the Human Spirit kind of stuff there. There's a little bit there's a This American Life podcast about like the British equivalent of Girl Scouts, which I think they call brownies. And there was war in Asia, and my sense of history here is off. I don't even remember which war it was, but they basically, like, the women who ran the program, like, kept the girls thinking it was a game through incarceration. Like, they were in a prisoner of war camp and some kind of camp all through the war, and the whole time they just like made it super fun. I'm like, on the one hand, it's insane. On the other hand, amazing work, right? Like, I felt a little bit like that with Trinity and her brother being like, no, this is great. Like, we got waffles. Waffles are great. But so here's my real reason I want to talk about it is there aren't a lot of ways for someone who's as bad a dad as we have now learned Dennis Rodman has been to be celebrated in the media, right? Like, it takes a certain kind of turning a blind eye, right? And I know that in my time covering the league, I'm just, you might see me if you're watching a video going through my desk, because I made a little post-it note of all the names, and now I didn't bring it upstairs. But of just like how many terrible, terrible dads. Like, one that I've heard about firsthand is Rick Barry. So like, Rick Barry scored a gazillion points in the NBA, which is a reason for him to be mentioned in a bunch of books that I own and like a bunch of articles. And he has like, and we just don't, we don't mention that, right? And or I remember when George Karl was diagnosed with cancer, and there was a lot of like, he opened up in a new way, wrote a book, and then I think we learned, check me on this, that he hadn't talked to Kobe Karl in 8 years. I think he said something like that. And Kobe Karl was like young. It's like the 8 years he missed were like formative 8 years. I know that I feel so bad for like Austin Rivers every time someone's like, oh, it must have been really cool having Doctors Brand. He's basically like, my mom raised me, like, I mean, go look up the actual quotes, but like, he doesn't want to hear about this, right? And I could keep going with examples of this. And I think I'm of two minds about this. One is, I feel weird that sports make it so that like, it's completely normalizes this giant pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Rodman is not an outlier
Nope.
among professional athletes. I don't know if that's the majority. I think it's gotten way better. I think that now, from when I started covering the league, there's like so many more serious husbands and serious dads, and I'd love to see that. Yay, Drew Holiday. You know, like
right.
But the norm is like your relationship is completely screwed. You got two phones, right? One to lie to your wife and kids about what you're doing, and the other one for all the women that are calling you, right? And there's just so many. I mean, it's by and large a league of people who are sleeping around, right? Like, and
that's professional sports as a whole, right? That's the general, yeah.
And so, you know, it's really weird to, you know, and the victims of that are mostly silenced, right? Like if an unfamous child who grew up came forward to say, like, my dad was a really bad dad, the journalism response is, we have no way to verify that. I don't know if this is true or not. This could just be sour grapes. And basically all those stories are nil, right? Those kids exist in giant numbers, but they don't get a real airing. The only time they get a platform is when the kids become famous. It's the only way I know that, like, so like Trinity Rodman, you know, and then Karl Malone's like, you know, completely, like, that's the worst. Karl Malone had, while he was, check me on this too, but while he was in college, which I think he denied for years, he had a child with a 13 or 14-year-old girl. Then that child, all denial, he didn't support it, didn't talk to it, didn't talk to the kid. The kid makes the NFL. Now we get the story, right? Once in a blue moon, one of these neglected children becomes famous. And I'm like, in the weird way media works, it's our only chance to get a firsthand account of the cost of being a deadbeat dad, right? And so I feel like we should listen to them, is my take. Basically, because we're not covering it well in the meantime, and we are actually covering it up in the meantime.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop talking in a second, but the only other thing I would say is, like, I think this is true in Hollywood too. Like, I don't know if, like, I have no idea if Kevin Costner is a good dad.
Right.
And I'm sensitive to the idea that we maybe pile on the black athletes a little bit, you know, and I don't want to be part of that either. We're like, I just use the term deadbeat dad, like I know it's loaded, right? Like, I think it's a celebrity media problem, not a
for sure
sports problem. But I don't like being part of this. Just like, you know, I've heard terrible stories about a bunch of, or, you know, one of the first All-Star games I went to, Gary Payton, I saw with my own eyes, was like out very late with like a very young child with him in the bar as he's like partying. And I'm like, I don't know how that turned out. You know, like, I take parenting seriously, and like, it felt bad. Yeah. And the way we talk about that is not at all, for somewhat good reasons, because it's very hard to source these stories and people don't read them. But I think that our love of these players is great, but it should be a little more eyes wide open, you know?
So we do our own, not we, but the collective we, sports media, do our own version of sport washing, right? With these athletes, right? In that we don't tell the full story and the full picture. Whether it be for, we don't think it's part of the storytelling, like the public can't handle knowing the full story, like whatever it is. I think we're doing them a disservice. I think the public actually can't handle it, and it's actually good for them to know these things, right? You know, Sports Illustrated did a piece on this with talking about this, and this is many, many years ago, 97 or so, I want to say. Picture of a young black boy on the cover, and it was like, you know, all the deadbeat dads in the NBA. One of them probably featured Larry Bird, had a daughter he did not claim for years. All right? Like, it just is one of those things, and I feel like, so if we want to hold media accountable, I am down for that, 1,000%. I don't know what the recourse is, how we get them to do better. I mean, you said the numbers. I guess people don't read those stories. I'm like, I guess this is why, for me, I had the pushback, like, why are we talking about this? I'm like, these are stories that story in 97, and I was maybe 18 years old then. I was like, oh, this is interesting. I want to read this. Like, I'm always fascinated by this stuff. When the Trinity Rodman thing happened, I remember ESPN did a whole thing. Dennis came to the game. She talked about it. I was like, something seems off here. Like, this just doesn't pass the smell test. Like, and she's kind of like talking around it a little bit. And it's like a voiceover, and the ESPN person goes, oh, Dennis hasn't been so present. And I'm like, and they just left it there. I go, he ain't around. this seems like a very like manufactured moment, which she then admitted it was, right? Like, unbeknownst to her, she didn't even know he was coming to the game, right? He did it totally for himself to like make himself look like, oh, the caring dad who gives a shit. So to me, I was like, I've been known these stories. Like, why doesn't everybody else know them? You know?
Well, so actually, you put your finger right on it. Like, that is the perfect example. Like, so she was playing in an important game, and he and running full speed, like trying to defend. I forget what. Like, and hears his voice and starts crying.
Yep.
While this is all what she reports on the podcast. And then after the game, she is, like she can barely make it to halftime, right? She needs her
friends,
talk to her friend to get her to halftime, and cries all halftime, and then after the game does hug him on camera, and she's crying, and that's all. And this is the perfect proof that sports media, like, we don't leave it alone. We did give him what Dennis knew he would get, right? He gets to look involved in his daughter's life because he showed up for part of one of her games. Right. And she would talk to him a few times a year. Right. And one of the conversations she reported was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a reality show. Why don't you be in it?
Yeah,
stuff like that. What? Like, this is not parenting.
We don't speak, and you want me to do a what?
Like, you want to be ancillary to your declining fame? Like, yeah. So this is where, to me, like, we have a little reckoning for media where it's like we are playing a role. We put him on. We like the 4 seconds he was a parent, we put on national TV.
Right.
And the 20 years when he wasn't a parent, we pretended.
We have nothing to say about that.
That seems wrong to me.
Very wrong. And that is on the collective media to do better, and the editors and reporters to push harder for like, no, like this story needs to be out there. And now my only guess is that you mentioned something. No one reads those stories, and those things don't sell. But to me, in that video, because I think it was an E60 piece, possibly adding 9 minutes or 5 minutes of like him not being, how does that hurt the story? Like that, to me, that makes the story even more compelling.
I mean, I think there's like there's like a gentleman's agreement that like there are many things we don't discuss, right? We don't discuss steroids or PEDs, right? And we don't discuss like your romantic life, right? Those are probably the two big categories. Maybe there are others. And oh dear, terrible things are happening on my computer. Pardon me. Hold on.
The Kremlin has returned.
That's actually my sister calling on FaceTime. Okay. Not discussing them is probably right in some ways, right? I just could get so.
Well, ultimately, who someone sleeps with doesn't really matter. Ultimately, unless it is then part of some larger nefarious scheme of like lying and not supporting your children, right? Like, but if you're just some dude who has a bunch of sex, like, okay, great, who gives a shit, right? Like, I don't like it doesn't matter.
So, like, well, we do talk a lot about teamwork and building trust, right? And like they kind of go together a little bit, right? Like, are you there, Jarod? Like, yeah, you're there every Monday and Thursday, right? Which is a little bit of mimicking like how you behave in a marriage or in a as a parent or whatever, right? Like you kind of like you show up, right? And like, and there's a little bit of like, like David talks to his clients about this kind of stuff too, right? It's like, like we're trying to be reliable for each other, right? We're trying to earn trust with each other, and having a million girlfriends and like, and switching your phone continuously because you don't want them to call you and say, "Hey, I have your child," like, which is why they want to switch the phone all the time. Like,
that means you're untrustworthy, and that attention is taking you away from what I need you to be focusing on here, which is building trust, right? So yes, for sure.
Could. I mean, like, I don't want to like psychoanalyze everyone, but like, it doesn't seem of a piece, right? Like, anyways, I just feel like some players are great heroes at these secret things, and it would be nice to acknowledge them, right? Like, if so, like, who would it be? Let's say it's Jrue Holiday, right? Like. Jrue Holiday is just the greatest fucking guy in the world. And everybody feels lifted up by him being in the room because of all the trust he's earned, right? And like, that matters. And we should discuss that. It's like, well, how is he great? It's like, well, he doesn't fly off to meet the Spanish doctor and do something that's quasi-legal, right? And he's very dedicated to his wife, right? Like, and his kids. And, like, or honestly, when Kyle Lowry had that scuffle
with the owner,
with like the investor. And then he talked about how he wanted to behave for his children. He wanted his children to see him act a certain way. Like, if I were his teammate, I would be so fired up about that. Like, no, he is an adult. He's the adult. Kyle Lowry is the man, right? He really handled that situation, right? Like, he had
even
all
though
the
he'd have been
feelings,
well within his rights to punch that dude in the face.
well within his rights. He made a difficult choice, right? Like, that's heroic to me as a dad and whatever, right? Like, anyway, so I feel like, but only the fact that it's super hard is only really tellable if we acknowledge that most of his teammates don't do that.
Yeah, they do right? all the other bad shit.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, so sorry to talk so long, but like I feel like there's heroes in this.
Yeah.
Only if we acknowledge how common it is to do it the other way.
Right. Dennis Rodman is not a hero.
No.
Like, right. Let's put that out there. Right. He is undoubtedly one of the greatest basketball players to ever play basketball. That is unassailable. You cannot punch holes in that. He is also, by Trinity Rodman's own admissions, a horrendous human being as a father.
Yeah.
And husband.
And he's an alcoholic, right? This is
and he's also an alcoholic.
And like that's probably the whole story, right?
And to also be fair, again, we mentioned this psychoanalyzing, and it's not about giving him a pass. This is all predictable if you know anything about his upbringing and what his story was. Like, it all makes perfect sense. I'm like, if you never dealt with that horrendous upbringing as a child, like, what happens now when all of a sudden you're super famous and got all this? Not surprising. Yeah. And you're an alcoholic, unsurprising to the very least. And to your point, there's so many people who this happens to every day who their daughter or son is not Trinity Rodman. They're just, Michael Smith or whatever. And we don't know the story because they're not famous, right? And they can't tell it.
I guarantee she's not the only NBA child who lived in a car.
100% not.
Yeah.
We can get into a whole podcast about, that world and the NBA and what players do. Because look, everything to them is a competition, right? And when I say everything, I literally mean everything, which includes women and war men and whatever. It's just, it is.
It's kind of like, I love the NBA and I love the players the most, right? Like I just admire the work, right? There's nobody loafs, right? Like that, it's heroic to me. And like, I'm not shitting on that. It is a very misogynistic culture. And
Henry, we've been in NBA locker rooms and the things that we've heard that we cannot say on this podcast, like,
it's very misogynistic. And like, and it's not just, that's not just the players. It's just like, it's kind of male fantasy land. And like, and that part seems like the clock's ticking on that a little bit, right? Like how the Me Too movement didn't come to the NBA is beyond me, right?
It's Christmas.
Like, the only reason is because it's not scandalous enough.
Yeah.
Like, but that, I mean, the true stories of the NBA, everyone's like, yeah, I thought so. Like, at least in Hollywood, they had decency to be like, no. You know what I mean?
The NBA is like, yeah, of course this is what happens here.
Like the Donald Sterling, like, wild stories, like, aren't wild in the NBA context, right?
No,
it's like,
and that's the crazy part, right? Is that it's not wild. It's like, this is kind of how things go here. It is a definition of an old boys club, right? Like in so many ways. And again, I just don't know how you fix that. I do think though that there's an influx of different kinds of players coming into the league now.
It's very different now,
right? And I think so that's becoming less and less. You're seeing more of the proactive dads and the whatever. Yeah. Not to say that everybody's a choir boy, no, but
I'm legit glad Adam Silver is a dad now, though, because like I think that like really thinking about it as a dad, you really feel like, no, you're gone like 150 nights a year. Like, that's I mean, it's an impossible to be a good dad. It's impossible.
Well, how many times, Henry, do the players, when it's like they're retired or whatever, they're around home all the time, it does not create a wonderful environment, right? It's like
never.
All of a sudden, it's like, what are you doing? You're fucking up this whole environment right now.
Like, well, you gotta one of my favorite little sayings, it might be on the wall over there, is earn the right to be heard, right? Like if you've been absent for 15 years, and you come and start barking orders, like, no, man, like we already have a way we do this. Like, we don't need,
no thanks.
Don't tell me how to load the dishwasher.
Why don't you learn how to load the dishwasher? See those trash? Why don't you take that trash out to the curb? Work on that.
You can take that out. Next week we'll let you deal with the washing machine.
Yeah, listen, I give so many of these women so much credit for like managing these households and like, and also not murdering their husbands, because like, I mean, look, it's not an easy thing, right? And again, I think the part of it, Henry, that's difficult, I think, for the casual fan to sort of embrace and lock onto is the money. The money distracts them. And they think, well, life has to be perfect because of all the cash. And it's like, well, in Trinity Rodman's case, no money, right? And in the other cases, like, yeah, the money's all great and all, but it still doesn't stop the dynamic of, dude, no, like you have to earn the right to be heard. Like, you can't just come in and start saying shit.
And there's honestly the other part that there's so many parts of that where it seems just so honest, but like I forget which WNBA player,
Angel Reese, who wore her dad's jersey,
who wore Rodman's jersey, and it's like so. Yeah. Trinity Rodman, who has like a giant hole in her heart because her dad is never there.
Yes,
sees him hugging.
Yes, Angel Reese. I was like, I kind of wish that was me, and crushing. Yes, come on, what are we doing?
Part of her like, she's not like, I hope he dies. She's like, I want him to be here. I want to spend time with him. Like, I want him to hug me.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And well, she talked about that, how it affects her future relationships with men. And she's like, she said, my love language is acts of devotion and physical touch. And if those things are not there,
she doesn't want to pass you in the living room and have her not touch you.
Right. Like, and she's like, what the fuck? Like, she's going to lose her. And I'm like, of course she feels that way when that's how her love is. That's how you learn when you're a little girl, right? Like what your dad disposed of, and when he is absent,
it's a bummer.
Well, I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. Like, how does she learn that, right? And so, no, it's
mostly it makes me root for her. I mean, I'm a huge fan. I always was a huge fan.
Yeah,
that team is so good. They're so fun to watch. Like the U.S. Women's National Soccer team is a delight.
I love, first of all, her and Sophia Smith and Mallory Swanson are hilarious because Triple Espresso is their name.
I love that.
And I
also love espresso.
And it's mainly because the three of them, if I'm pretty sure, three of them have at least one biological parent that is African American, and the other one is not. Right? And so
I didn't know that.
That's why they giggled so much and laughed about it on the little inside. So while they're a certain shade of brown, not quite black coffee, but that's the funny little gag that they have.
Explaining that to me.
Well,
okay.
I figured you probably didn't know that. I was like, let me just drop a little knowledge.
Isn't that mocha?
Maybe a mocha, right? That might work, And oddly enough, they're all roughly around the same skin hue, which, which is interesting, right? Because it can be all varied, right? When it comes out that way. But no, they're fun. Trinity is outstanding, amazing technical skill player, so much power and just raw athleticism as well. She's fun to watch. And how do you not root for her?
There's one more thing here, which is, I'm a believer that like the way the media works to make people fans is to make you like deeply connect with the person, so you root for them, right?
Yeah.
Trinity Rodman has this strength and vulnerability that no male athlete has, basically. Not a 22. She's 22,
right?
Doing this, right?
Not a 38-year-old male athlete could obviously do that.
Yeah. So she's openly talking about the most difficult things in her life. In the she's like, I just learned last week how it affected my love language, right? She's like, she's so vulnerable, and guess what? I love her for that. And I'm not going to miss. I might buy tickets to a game partly inspired by this, right? I am rooting for her. Like in the way that like some uncle or whatever might root for her, right? It's like, that's my girl, right? Like that's like, I want to see her win because it's triumph over a lot of hard stuff, right? We don't get that view. The NBA actively polices journalists away from that kind of exposure, right? And like, I don't know what hard things Donovan Mitchell has faced in his life. Right. And I only will know if some PR team is like, we're going to take this one little slender thing
and give it to you.
No one's going to mention drugs. No one's going to mention alcohol. It's going to be like just this like, oh, he was the shortest kid in 6th grade, or or Nikola Jokic really liked horses and he was kind of overweight. Like we have like certain carefully doled out little vulnerabilities. Yeah, that doesn't win me over quite the same way.
No, and again, to your point, Henry, I think the fans can rally around that and appreciate it.
Totally,
like. The NBA talks about, oh, why is it so hard for fans to connect? We just talked about it right here. If these guys were like Trinity Rodman, this would be the most popular sport in the world by like leaps and bounds.
Let's get going on the real shit,
But that shit ain't happening, sadly. Henry, there have been some changes to the All-Star game. And I'd like to discuss them with you. So what's going to happen is there are going to be 4 teams 3 games. They're going to play final target score of 40 points. It's going to be 3 teams of NBA All-Stars, 8 players a team, and the 4th team will be the Rising Stars champion. Each game plays to a final score target of 40. This is all the NBA's attempt to make people give a shit about the All-Star game. I think we talked about this on this show before, Henry. I think the All-Star game and All-Star weekend is in many ways outdated, right? It was this awesome thing I remember as a kid watching the NBA because there was no league pass, and I didn't have 8 million channels to watch all these teams and players from far away. The All-Star game was the only time I would see them unless they came to the playoffs and those teams made the playoffs. Now I see these people every day. Like, there's no novel. Like, it's great. And not only that, guys play together all the time now, right? Chris Mullin couldn't play with Charles Barkley back in unless it was the Dream Team. That shit happens all the time now. So that novelty of, oh my God, look how cool it is. We see this every day. So the game itself, to me, I don't know that you can fix that piece of it. I know why the weekend exists. It's for all the NBA's corporate sponsor. That shit is never going away. Those guys got to go to wherever plays and do all their glad handing. So I'm like, fine. Why don't you call it NBA convention weekend and just do all that stuff and eliminate Sunday's game?
Yeah, I think all that. I agree with everything you just said. It's the sort of hokey corporate fest. However, with that as a given, I love this setup.
That's something different, right? Let's see if it works.
I think the key part is putting the Rising Stars in there, which means like we probably can't have this like gentleman's agreement to go easy, right? Because who's it going to be?
It'll be like
try hard, like
Rising
rookie.
Star. I know. Oh, he's hurt now, but it'd be like Jalen Wells of the Memphis Grizzlies grinds out every position and like
someone's gonna go crazy hard, and like it's just gonna be bummer. Like whoever. Dame's going to be like, God damn it. Like, let me just show you how we do this. Right. Like,
exactly.
Like now we got a game. Right. And they're playing these games of 40. I'll watch. I got time for this.
Like the target score makes sense. I think it'll make them more competitive. You'll have the Rising Stars. They are the fly in the ointment because those kids care and they'll be like, I want to go at Dame. I want to go at Ant. I want to go at KD or Steph or whoever. Right. Like, or LeBron. Like that's, so I think, you might see
the Rising Stars will be good. I mean, it'll be Victor. Like,
but Victor's probably gonna be an all-star, so he'll be.
Which one does so where does he play?
It's true. Yeah.
This is a giant question.
Yeah. Be interesting. It'll be interesting. Yeah.
I guess he plays on the all-star. Everyone's gonna play on the top team.
He'll pick the top team. Yeah, he'll pick one of the top teams. But again, it mattered 20, 30, 40 years ago because wow, all these guys collected. We don't see that. We see that literally every day in the NBA. Yeah. Like, there's no need. Like, there's nothing. The novelty of that, it's not novel. I'm like, we see that all the time. So that part of it. So yeah, I'm down with these innovations. Let's see. Notably, because no surprise, that's who he is. I asked Kevin Durant about it. I think it sucks. I hate this. Let's go back to Eat West and Gas.
Oh my God.
Which is, I'm like, that's exactly what I expected him to say.
I feel like I know what he's going to be like when he's 80, right?
Yeah, of course. Of course. He's going to be old curmudgeon man like, this shit sucks.
Just, yeah.
That is his MO.
Go up on time, Kevin. We'll give you the ball. Do your thing,
But that's the one thing, regardless of the format, he will do that. He will show up. He will do his thing. And so... but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. I think the slam dunk and all that stuff, I think the 3-point contest is taking over as being much more exciting. And I think it's because guys don't want to fail in the slam dunk anymore, right? And the best players don't do slam dunk anymore, and for a variety of reasons. And listen, I don't know what to tell you people.
Everybody's just tired. People are just tired.
Also, there's that. Can I tell you a little secret, guys? Most of the players would rather not be at All-Star Weekend. They'd rather be off for the week. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
Unless they're I think a lot of I remember oh my gosh, I cannot remember. Starting point guard for the Hawks, Jeff
Teague.
Thank you. I asked him. We were at All-Star Weekend, and he's running all around, and I'm like, "Hey man, do you like coming to this?" And he's like, "Yeah, my shoe company pays me like $50,000 just for this dumb thing I'm doing right now." And I'm like, understood. That makes sense.
Teague, cool. LeBron, yeah. LeBron's like, I fly in private on Sunday for the game and leave. I am not here for the weekend because no thank you.
Oh, It's really an exercise in the league controlling the players, right? The league just doesn't have a ton of control over the players, but this is like
the one time they can be like, you have to go to this.
You will go and talk to this person. 8:07, you'll talk to this person. They just like get dragged through. They're like dehydrated and sitting in hotel ballrooms.
The guys who fly in late because they had a game Thursday night and they get in early in the morning Friday and they're meeting you for an interview, like they can barely wipe the cold out of their sleep out of their eye. I'm like, have you slept? Like, nah, bro. They just like, I was like, okay, this will be fun.
It's a strange kind of fatigue to be under like fluorescent lights of like a Hilton ballroom.
Yeah,
just going,
it's the worst.
Start interview. Then they got to go do stuff with like autograph 200.
And then Nike's like, okay, you got to go to the village and do that. Yeah, it's the whole thing.
Yeah, and then you got to be like excited.
That's the thing. You have to be excited. It's like,
and their whole family's there, just like 10 yards away behind a rope, and they're like, maybe I can talk to you like tomorrow. Probably not.
Yeah, it's like maybe I'll see you for dinner. Maybe not. I gotta go to Kenny's All-Star party.
Like, oh, go say hi. And they're like, no, you gotta go talk to like Red Bulls. Oh my god, like like,
guys, it is a shit show. But I'm telling you, like it is like oh god. Anyway, time for a True Hoop Tradition. It is top 5 time. Top 5 teams in the league right now. Henry, Abbott, who is on your 5 line?
Memphis Grizzlies.
Okay. I cheated first time this year. I've cheated and I have 2 teams. So I couldn't decide. Rockets and Mavs are on my 5 line.
Well, you have to sleep with that knowledge. That
it's fine. Yeah. Who's on your 4 line?
Mavericks.
Memphis Grizzlies for me. Your number 3 team?
The Cleveland Cavaliers.
Boston Celtics for me. Your number 2 team?
You did an interesting thing there. Number 2 for me is the Oklahoma City Thunder.
As they are for me. And the Celtics are your 1, and the Cavs are my 1.
Yeah.
Look, it's fair. It's mainly because of the record, and I love what they're doing. Kenny Atkinson has Brooklyn return this week, and they won that game. Look, they're not a perfect team. They're flawed, and I think they have some issues that David pointed out in the article. You guys should read that will hurt them come postseason time. But look, I love what he's doing. Donovan Mitchell's one of the under 30 stars Henry mentioned, leading a team, along with Evan Mobley, another very under young 30 star who's ascending. This team is fun. I love everything about what they're doing.
They've won 85% of their games.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, what's not to love? We're pretty confident they're going to be a top 1 or 2 seed in the Eastern Conference, right? As we know, schedules don't really change much past here, assuming no debilitating injury by one of those 2 aforementioned players that I just said. Obviously.
Have you seen Donovan mentioned as an MVP candidate at all?
I have not, but he should be.
Neither. I feel like he should be.
Yeah.
85% of your games.
We're getting a lot of Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
And we're getting a lot of Giannis Antetokounmpo, which, look, I cannot dissuade you from making that argument. However, their teams are, Milwaukee's playing better. Denver's got some issues. Cleveland, as Henry said, 85% of their games. Yeah, that he's right there. Donovan Mitchell's there. One thing I want to get you out on, Henry, this is a little rumor that went out there. Denver's got some scoring issues outside of Jokic. They're talking about trading for Zach LaVine. That's the rumor. What do you think, right off the top of your head?
So this would be MPJ? Is that how they can make the contracts work?
I mean, it's going to have to be either MPJ or Jamal Murray. One of them got to go.
I mean, Zach LaVine's actually been playing well this year. Mm-hmm. He's having good numbers. His only problem is that he makes way too much money.
He makes way too much
money. But he's a good player now.
Yes,
and they got to take some risks, right? This is a really weird thing. I mean, to your MVP point, Jokic is in EPM
number 1
far and away the best player in the league.
I mean, he just is.
So basically, they're a crappy team with Jokic in his prime. He's 29. Mm-hmm. How many more years of this does he have? More than most because he doesn't jump.
Right.
But still, they gotta. I mean, it just didn't work. Their approach just didn't work. Not to win titles. It worked to be relevant. But yeah, I assume they would launch up in the standings if they made that deal. Their cap would be screwed forever. And
I mean, of course, you are literally done forever. So you better win 2 of the next 3 titles, or else this shit was not worth it.
They're probably is the only. I mean, they probably could get someone without such a cap crisis.
They could get more filler. If LaVine is the target, I think fit wise, if they wanted him, I would go I'd go Murray because I keep MPJ because of the size on the wing, right?
Well, you're a little bit in the fan club.
Well, listen, everyone knows that. I mean, that's not that's an open secret out here, right? But because you're already smart, so now you're gonna go. Now we're gonna be super small on the wing, and we're just gonna be LaVine and Murray in the backcourt, who aren't already great defenders. Okay,
It's not bad. I mean, like I would still win and pick them to win the championship, but
of course not.
You know, so right now we rank. Well, what do we think they're
probably like
9th
7,
or 10th
8,
in line for the
or 9, 10. I'll be generous. Yeah, 9, 10. Yeah.
I don't know. Would you pick them ahead of like the Warriors, the Timberwolves, the Bucks? I don't know.
I would not pick them ahead of the Timberwolves. Not ahead of the Warriors. Maybe the Bucks.
With Zach LaVine, they're probably. I would put them with the Mavericks, right? They're like they'd be about there. Yeah,
they'd be about there. Yeah. Which is not bad. You got a chance, right? Top 5. You know, things work out well, and you know, the seeding breaks right for you. All right, folks. Quick programming reminder for you. Monday's podcast with David, we will preview the NBA's Christmas Day games, and that will be the last podcast of calendar year 2024.
Wow.
Yeah, man. This year flew by us. We're already here in the holiday season. We hope everybody's who celebrates is enjoying time with family, friends, loved ones, recharging, whatever you're doing, taking stock, reflecting, and hopefully starting 2025 with a bang. But enjoy the games this weekend, and we will see you next week. Take care.